Hello, everyone. Today we are speaking with Douglas Horn, Chief Telos Architect and co-founder of Telos. Telos is, as for me, a very interesting blockchain, and I'm actually interested in Telos since the beginning, since the beginning. And just to speak a little bit, Telos is built on EOS iOS software, and it was considered, correct me if I'm wrong, like EOS sister chain, but not to confuse some people spoke so. Some people said that it's like fork. And why I was interested, because at that time it was very interesting technology because of the free transactions. And this, I think, was important for people, for the mass adoption,
Yeah.
And back at that time, I think it was end of 2019, beginning of 2020, there was an interesting governance system, Telos Works. And I'm interested in blockchain governance in general, and that's why I'm happy that today we can speak about Telos. But before that, I would like to ask a few words about you. What was your journey into blockchain world? How did you, and why Telos? At that time, there were many other blockchains. How it started for you?
Great questions. Well, first of all, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks, Andre. Excited to talk to your audience and just spread the word. So, my name is Douglas Horn. I have had sort of a interesting career path mostly as a professional creative. I started out in computers even before college, in high school, and I started out early enough that there were I had opportunities to write part of a book about computer programming, write a lot of magazine articles. That was actually a thing, where they would mail you a magazine about computer programming. So when I was younger, I moved into being essentially a professional creative, where I wrote I was paid to write screenplays and eventually work my way up to directing some movies. I got, small independent movies while I was working as, also as a writer and producer and things like that for film and television programs. I was also during part of that period, for several years, I was working at a game invention studio as a creative. So it was and then later on, I was doing a lot of marketing. I was working for Microsoft and Amazon Web Services and Starbucks and other companies, Boeing, up in Seattle, Washington, where I live, for quite a while, and I kind of got sick of travel and stuff. So through that period, though, I was secretly very interested in blockchain and Bitcoin. I ran, a fair amount of Bitcoin, what seemed like a lot of Bitcoin hash rate back then, but really got out of that business. I really wanted to bring in and do development. I wanted to do development of games. I thought back when CryptoKitties came out, I was like, oh my god, this is all wrong. And not that it was going to be successful, but I thought that gaming could be much better. And so that drew me back in, and long before I even conceived of building of starting off Telos, I was part of the EOS mainnet launch group, which I was a very minor player there. Others did much more work, but there were maybe 30, 40 companies around the world who were working on that. I was one of them, and near the bottom of the pack. But I had some concerns about how things were going with the EOS launch. I didn't think they were being true to what they had promised people, and so and as people didn't really pay very much attention to my concerns, I eventually became more worried and found other people who shared the same concerns, and had was not only like, hey, this thing's not going to work because whatever, or it's going to have some problems, or it may work great, but it's not the reason I got involved. It's not the stuff I was excited about. Other people had the same thoughts, a lot of them actually, and so I also had a solution that I thought would do it better, and that's what became Telos. And Telos, in 4 years ago, we announced what we were going to be doing, and then it took about 5 or 6 months to actually launch our mainnet. We launched in December of 2018 with no ICO. The founders, all of us, kept just 5% for ourselves, and everything else went out to the existing EOS holders. Although EOS was one of the things, what the problems with it was just so centralized in terms of ownership at that time that we couldn't that's was part of the reason why they weren't doing all the governance things and whatnot that they had originally promised, was because it wouldn't mean anything, because 1,000, less than 0.1% of the accounts really had all the economic control. So when Telos gave that airdrop, the free airdrop to all the EOS Genesis holders, we put a 40,000 EOS cap on it, and it said, if you've got 100 EOS, you're going to get 100 Telos. If you've got 5,000 EOS, you're going to get 5,000 Telos. If you have 60,000, you're going to get 40,000 Telos. If you have 10 million, you're going to get 40,000 Telos, right? And that actually made it one of the flattest distributions ever in blockchain. So
in this way, you also saved some amount, because if I'm correct, you had the tokenomics like similar to the EOS, and you saved for the ecosystem fund. You saved some funds.
Exactly. So in saving, well, there's two things happen. One is that just in the initial distribution, in saving, in capping, less than 1% of the accounts, we cut the total token supply by 2/3. Right. So just to give you an example of how out of whack it was, we had a process where, like many things, you want to airdrop to people who are going to be community members, not to people where it's just going to sit unused forever, right? And so we had a 1 year period to opt in. And to opt in, all you had to do was use your Telos account one time for anything, send Telos to it, vote, anything like that. So the easiest process possible. But a lot of people didn't do it, either because we had no help from Block One or anybody else in getting the word out there. So no matter how hard we tried, we missed a lot of people. And then also because some people saw Telos at the time as a challenge, as opposed to EOS, and so they chose not to. So out of that, there were several million Telos, that tens of millions of Telos that were not being used. And we decided as a community, using our voting system, that instead of burning that, we would use that as reserves to run the chain and we turn off all inflation on the chain. So there's never been, in almost 3 years, there hasn't been a new Telos token created. It could happen in the future, but we have reserves for a couple of years to come, at least. And so the tokenomics are great. In the flashing forward to present day, all those questions about EOS versus EOSIO, all those things have gone out the window, because Block One did exactly what I said they were going to do. People who thought I was being negative on EOS realized that I was just correctly predicting what Block One was doing, and then I became part of a coalition that was started by Yves LaRose of EOS Network Foundation, but I joined them and helped pull together a coalition, which is now branded as Antelope, which has taken over the code. And though the chains are competing in many ways, they're equally collaborating and doing something that's going to raise the rising tide that lifts all boats for all of us. And we've realized that there's so much more that we can gain together. So those relationships have become much more friendly. We're actually putting out real code, more than Block One ever put out, things they promised that they never delivered or intended to deliver. And those were all my concerns anyway. So Telos has amazing strengths. We don't have to explain the difference between EOS and EOS.io anymore. We can throw that out the window and talk about, being antelope chains. But the fact that the user base of EOS is so much larger is actually an enormous growth opportunity for Telos right there. Just getting 20% of those users to also be Telos users, not to leave there, but to come and join us, which is happening. That's going to be, all those things are incredible things. At the same time, a year ago, we launched the first Antelope now based EVM, which is, so we're the only one who has it right now. Others are coming, but we're well over a year ahead in building things out, and it's the fastest in the world. It's the only one that really solves front running, very low costs, very high capacity. We're about to prove that the proven number of 10,000 TPS from the past is actually significantly higher than that, and we're going to have proof, further proof, updated proof. The last test was 2 years ago. So there's a lot of really exciting things. So Telos leads in many ways in things like the EVM development and things like our governance system, that they're not necessarily going to be replicated, but there's a lot of things that are great about being part of this Antelope community that are also, that are wins for all of us. So it's a very exciting time. That's sort of the backstory. Whew.
Yeah, I remember back then, and I think it's a very good introduction about Telos. And time is limited, but the viewers, they can go and check everything, additional information about Telos. I remember
It's
then.
quite a story. I think there's going to be a big Hollywood movie in the next Netflix series in the next few years. Because it's such a great and interesting and twisty turny story. But yeah, I did try to compress the high points.
I remember back years ago, Telos had some things which EOS didn't have, and
we still do, and those things are now built out, and so they're better. Like you can see, Decide Voter, like our mobile app is the best governance, best voting app in existence, right? Nobody else has that because it's built on our Telos Decide system. So there's a lot of things. Like we still have a lead. The difference is that in certain areas, and of course everyone else, like Wax has a huge lead in NFT usage, right? EOS has a huge lead in in people coming on economically. What we're saying is, instead of us like elbowing each other, for every single thing, let's take the strengths and the communities that have already developed. Let's not have to necessarily be everything to everyone, and be, and it doesn't mean we won't cross over. We won't compete in certain areas. We certainly will. And we certainly have our superlatives. I think, but we also there's no reason that says you can only use, one blockchain. In fact, that's the future of the world, is not that at all. The future of the world is there will be a block mesh of many chains, certainly not every chain that's out there and hot and heavy today, but there might be like 20 really useful blockchains in the world. There might be 10, who knows? But there could also be thousands that are like parachains on those, because that's something that we've enabled. And those will be the most used, but most people won't really think that much about it, right? It'll be like using the World Wide Web now, and you don't really think about that. Most people don't think much about HTTP. It's kind of a utility. It's like the power, like you definitely want the power to be on. It lets you do everything that you're going to do, but you don't really spend a lot of time, doing it. Now, some people buy stock in the local power utility and they make money from that. Some people work for it. There's all kinds of things, but it becomes boring. And the reason it becomes boring is because it's so counted on. Like I don't spend 2 minutes thinking about electricity coming to my house, except when it's off, right? That's how we're going to, then we don't think about HTTP unless there's a problem, because it's so ingrained into our experience and our daily life that, it's just part of the fabric of of our life. We only understand it when it's taken away, how important it was, which won't happen with blockchain. That's what blockchain ultimately will be. These are these early days where it's like, mobile networks and all that stuff. There's it's a pioneering days, but soon it's just going to be kind of boring. But because it's so important, and all those chains that'll work together in sort of a mesh of different blockchains interacting in different ways are going to be behind the scenes, where they belong, in my view.
Yeah, and I also remember that some things existed in the Telos ecosystem. For example, Area X NFT platform, it existed even before the NFT became the like market trend.
Yeah, very early on a lot of those things. I think that governance is another one. Like, so I don't know when exactly it's going to happen, but
and I used it myself a few times. I submitted proposal, and I think 2 times I even won. It was a marketing proposal, content creation proposal, and I remember there was something back then. Telos was cheap, so I won like 50 or 59,000 Telos, and because I won few times, I could have more than 100,000 Telos. And then I remember when the market changed and Telos was $1. Then I remembered the time that I could have, and this also interesting case about this market volatility. I could have kept it, and I would do it, but I needed to spend on living costs and others.
Yeah.
At some moments, I spent like all crypto which I had. So I had sometimes zero and sometimes even negative balance. But I remember that it's really good, and Telos works. It was a really good system because you publish, and it's a very kind of unique system. At that time in EOS, they were only speaking about making this proposal system. Then when they implemented that you needed to pay some amount, and in Telos there was like modest amount to put. That's also reasonable because to avoid spamming, and then everything happens on chain, and you can see how the votes are coming in. It's really even exciting process.
Yeah.
Is the system
We
now
also use it. Yeah, it's the same system but better. Like we've continuously developed it. We've built mobile apps that are like really powerful, easy interfaces for this. It's just going to become more and more good. We've also, in addition to worker proposals, we do elections, so you can use it for elections. You can use it for on the chain. You can use it for changing, for amending our governance. Like we do that every few months. Like we kind of go in and do whatever changes the community needs. Like we used to have voting proxies, and the community said, that's not working the way we hoped it would, and they eliminated it. Right? It's fun. Yeah, people in the comments are saying, yeah, we're funding these things. This is allowing us to do that. The most interesting thing to me about Telos Decide and Decide Voter is, unlike every other blockchain that's working on governance at some level, these are open. This exact same system that we use to run Telos is open for anyone to use. Any DAO, any DApp can use that, and many already have, to bring in to make their own governance. So
Decide that should be also a chain which is built on EOS IO software. Yes.
Well, Telos Decide is a tool set built on Telos, but you can use it for anything. You'll be able to use it on these parachains that are coming out as well. But you can use it right now to create your own governance group, and people do. We're just part of what we're trying to do with the Decide Voter mobile app is make that easier and easier. That will eventually be a suite of tools for people who mostly create and manage DAOs, for people, different ones for people run them and participate. And it's going to make it really easy, because sadly there really are no good, transparent, immutable governance tools available. And so but even though every organization in the world needs some form of governance, there's nothing that makes it easy and cheap and verifiable and the way that Telos decide voter do. So that's going to be huge, and that's going to be an NFT thing, and everyone's going to go, hey, just like you said, yeah, Area X was way ahead of the explosion of NFTs. Absolutely, because people know that these things are going to be big, ahead of the market. And the trick is you build for it, right? And so we're trying to do that in a lot of areas: DeFi, liquidity, environmental projects, food sustainability, um, carbon credits and sequestration, and all those things. All those things are great use cases for Telos, so we're actively pursuing. So I think we're going to stay. I think, as just like you said, Area X was way ahead of the general perception of NFTs. We have a number of those projects that are there that I think are going to be ahead of whatever the next thing that comes along and the next thing that comes along. We're really well positioned right now, especially given the resources we have to work with.
Yeah, but by the way, let's name some apps, and because they were like in different, you named the areas, and I remember in games there existed Angry Warlord. You said that you played it yourself.
Yeah, no, Angry Warlords. So that was funded. Yeah, that was funded entirely through Telos Decide, right? Like a lot of these, I mean, that's the thing. We had early on, we had a lot of groups coming and saying, "Hey, you want to do this? We want to do that." Now we have and so that funded a lot of things. But then we became, as the chain grew and we had more resources, we've been in a constant process of further professionalizing these things. So the Telos core devs used to be me, and at one point it was me and two developers working for me, and you got more and more people in. As you get more people, it grows. Now we have over 20 full-time staff with project managers and developers and leads of EVM and leads of these types of things. It's just becomes professionalized. And so the investment part of it, the funding has as well. We still have Telos Works, and we use that, but we also have other funding mechanisms, because to attract good projects, you really have to have at least some of that. And we can't necessarily compete with Solana and Cosmos in terms of giving as much money, but we give a lot of help to projects. And frankly, that's, a lot of these things get money, and some people are just looking for money, and they don't build their ecosystem anyway. Like they fulfill the obligations of the money, and then they go off and do whatever they want to do. We're working with people like Apex. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just meant that in some cases the modest funding is also enough for the start. I just remember there was this Wordproof, this app for WordPress. I think it started on Telos.
It started on Telos, yeah, and they've become extremely successful. Yeah. So you're right, because the problem is because there's so little funding for those kinds of, just like angel type funding, and technology help, that there's so much need and so many people are blocked out. And Telos is all about creating opportunity, right? So I look at it like this: like developers who have great ideas, but because of the country they're born in, or because of the fact, or even if they're born in the US, they're college students or whatever, they don't have access. People who have good ideas and are willing to work and are willing to build something, but don't have access because of the way the world economic system is designed. Like, I want Telos to give them an opportunity, because because I think people have amazing talents and can build amazing things, and we as a human species are missing out on many potential things, just because people with great ideas don't have a chance to develop them. So that's part of it. We're also working in more professionalized ways with people with groups that do have those opportunities, are now looking to do the best, right? Apex, by the way, and we have a lot of people in the chat here that originally came to Telos from Apex. and now are huge believers in both. Apex is an example. It's a Instagram replacer app that rewards people, and it's one of the most beautiful apps you've ever seen. It's way better than Instagram in my view. I don't even use Instagram anymore. They were on Steam and they wanted to have the technology advance of that Telos could offer them. We worked with them for over a year to bring that out, and now they have the best app in the space, and huge communities, and our communities have merged, right? So we have it's a huge win for both. It took a long time. That's an example of us going and saying what these guys need is some money, but a lot of technical help. And fortunately, we're the ones to do that. That's another great example. So shout out to all the Apex users there. We have other things like Taikai where they didn't need a lot of help for us. That's a leading hackathon platform. We use it ourselves, but Microsoft, Pfizer, Siemens, all these big companies use it, and a lot of crypto and Web3 projects too. That's built on Telos. They came because our tech. They came for two reasons. One is because our tech what let them do it, and the other reason is they're based in Portugal, and another Portugal-based company called Kudo, uh, which is a game which allows game developers, especially indie game developers, to add blockchain monetization into their game very simply on anything built in Unity, which is the leading game design engine in the world. Um, it 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 brings them the advantages of blockchain payments and things like that. They built on Telos, and they had such a great experience building with us. Then that they told Taikai about it. So getting a lot of great apps. We're willing to work with them. We don't write them a big check and go away. We we really roll up our sleeves and make it work. And our partnerships are the things that you're going to be seeing are just getting bigger and better, and it's really going to cause us to explode. I think we're on the cusp of that. So
Yeah, also interesting to ask how this EVM, which started like more than a year ago, and
yeah.
how this in terms of compatibility and interoperability, how the Telos on
Yeah.
the Telos mainnet, and there are
Oh,
many
it's
talks how it's working with EVM, and what is more popular, like mainnet or this EVM part.
right. Or we say native or EVM. So
Native.
because everything runs on the Telos mainnet. So um, more than 2 years ago, Block One, when they were still putting money into the system, they put out a call for somebody to build a contract to show it was possible to run EVM or to run Solidity contracts on EOS.io at the time, and it was mainly just a bragging rights thing. That sat unused. Somebody did it, won $200,000 bounty for that, but it sat unused until I pulled together a group on Telos and said, "Look, here's a plan of how we can take this as a basis, but we're going to have to expand a lot. There's 13 main things we need to do, but to turn this into a general purpose EVM that's a competitor with with Ethereum and Polygon and all these others, and it took us a year to build. It's 100% feature compatible with Ethereum and everything else. So what it means is it opens up people who are used to using Ethereum or Polygon or Avex or anything like that, and they can use the exact same tool set that they use. They use MetaMask, they use DeFi things that look exactly the same. They're already comfortable with, but they're able to do it on Telos where it's so much faster. I mean, our block times are half a second. Like that's an amazing change. So you're gonna get a response back in a second, right? Or it's two. Like instead of waiting, it's high capacity, so everything you don't have to wait for a block to get made where hopefully you're going to be included in. Everything is included. It's first in first out processing, so you can't jump ahead of somebody and do front running or sandwich trading, a really big DeFi problem. The costs are the gas cost is flat. So as long as you pay the minimum amount, everyone pays the same minimum amount for gas price. So you no longer have to go, oh, do I want this to be fast, slow, or whatever? Everything's going to be fast. You don't even think about it. It takes away one of the friction points of just general use, right? And it doesn't sound like a big thing, but once you get used to not needing that anymore, not even have to think about how much gas you use, it very quickly becomes really annoying when you have to go back to it and use slower things where you have to try to guess that and hope you're going to be, you pay enough gas to get included in a block, stuff like that. It's just a way better system. Our audit was so thorough that we actually found a major security bug in the Go Ethereum implementation that they had to fix. We thought it was us, but it was them. So yeah, and the tools, we're not on Etherscan because it's very expensive and takes a long time to get that set up. But we have Telos Scan, which has increasingly all the features that people expect from that. So we're building the tooling around that. We've got our 1.5 and then later 2.0 functions that are going to come. 1.5 is about to ready to deploy. We're already testing it on testnet, and that is really going to improve things. We can show the blockchain, the scanner, the ability for DeFi. So everything's the same. It's just way faster, cheaper. We're not fighting for that 0.0001 cent thing, because that's like the wrong fight to have. But things cost from less than a penny to 3 pennies to do something. So that means it's the same way as we try to open up the development of apps to people who didn't have the opportunity before. We're also opening up DeFi to people who aren't already crypto millionaires, right? So you can make a trade that's going to cost you 3 cents, right? And instead of like $30, right? Where $30 for some people is their monthly income, right? In this world, right? So we have the amazing opportunity to build that out. I'd say to your question about what do we use more, what's more exciting right now? I think people are more excited about EVM. People, because there's so many more people know how to use EVM to EVMs with MetaMask, even though the Telos way of signing and the Antelope version of signing is actually more powerful and probably easier. People aren't used to it. They've forgotten how long it took them to really kind of get the hang of MetaMask, and so and now it's just something they know how to use, right? So learning something new has an impediment. And so we've removed that. And so all the exciting stuff right now is happening on, or the majority, like 75% of the exciting stuff right now is happening on EVM. Still some very exciting stuff at native. But another thing we've done is we weren't perfectly sure we could do this, and no one's ever done this before, but we basically have the ability to punch through to use hybrid things where we can leverage in one transaction the advantages of both our very powerful C++ based native apps and EOS.io, and EVM apps. So not only is it the fastest, but it brings a new level of power that we're only now really starting to explore. Very exciting. So the stuff that's happening, I could sit here for 2 hours and tell you about the amazing stuff that's happening and still not cover everything.
And are there like some changes which you are planning to do in the context of Ethereum 2.0, or it's not related in this case? Or
no, it's a great question. I mean, Telos is Ethereum 3.0, really. And I know everyone wants to like add a number and say, and go to 11. But we really are, because even when Ethereum 2.0 comes out, yes, they will have, the costs hopefully will go down, not guaranteed, but it will be proof of stake. It will, there will be many advantages. It will have more capacity through sharding, but Telos is it's still going to be 12-second blocks, where Telos is going to be half-second blocks. I think we look at that the wrong way, right? We say, oh, it's 12-second blocks. That means it's 5 blocks per minute versus Telos being 120 blocks per minute, right? So our capacity is going to be larger on the L1 level, and we can still do L2s to do other. We don't have to, but we can still do very powerful L2s on Telos to be able to take advantage of other things like letting a game use its own coin as the gas for for it, right? As opposed to Telos. Right now, you use Telos the way you would use ethers, but that's going to be something that we're rolling out, which can be really great for users. The chain will still the game will still have to stake a certain amount of Telos to do that, but it keeps everything within their own ecosystem, right? That's something that Ethereum 2.0 is not going to be able to generally not going to be able to do without a serious sort of L2. So we're faster. We have our capacities more. We eliminate front running. The costs are very low. When you look on Ethereum 2.0, there's all these different shards, and the shards aren't necessarily any bigger than Ethereum right now. So all the DeFi will generally happen on one shard because you can only cross compose against things within a single shard right now. We already have this massive uncharted space on Telos. So like these are all things that like they're going to EWASM. We've had that for a long time. There's all these things. We eliminate front running. We have these governance tools. We have these punch through tools that hybridize the system. They don't have any of that, and so yeah, they're going to have Ethereum 2.0, and it's going to be amazing. But we've already superseded every single one of the things they get out of Ethereum 2.0, plus a lot of the things that aren't even on their drawing board. And we've had these for a year. So people just have to discover them. So I think it's great that Ethereum, it'll re-energize people, but Telos still compares very favorably and answers problems that they don't even address. Like there's no way to address MEV or front running on Ethereum. It's built into the system. It's how the system works and still will be. We've solved that. And boy, if you like make a purchase and then you just see that somebody basically stole 5% of your value from that purpose from some bot, that's very frustrating. And you'll never really get the broader financial community to sign on to those things until you fix that, and Telos just fix that. So I think we're really well positioned. I think people are only going to be once ETH 2.0 is up and really running, people are not, it will be good. I'm all for that. I'm excited about it. But then people will really start to understand that it's not this cure-all panacea that's going to fix everything suddenly. These problems will still exist. Reality will come back, and people will look for solutions that do already fix these things better, and they're going to come to Telos.
Yeah, it would be. It's really interesting. It would be interesting to speak more, go deeper in the technical details, and you are really very knowledgeable, both like in the vision, so you see the big picture, and in the technical things too. But because of limited time, I think I have the time for the last question, and because you are interested in the big picture, in the politics, geopolitics, international affairs. And by the way, thank you very much for supporting Ukraine in Twitter and doing many things. Last question would be, where do you see the general cryptocurrency industry trend is going on, the market trend, where it's going on? What trends can we expect, like metaverse, NFT, DAOs? Just your vision.
Yeah, I think the big things you're going to see, the biggest thing you'll see is that there are about to be projects that actually bring in real world utility, and not just be solutions, in search of a problem, but actually really address things. Those at a meta level, those are the things that are going to really thrive, right? So I look, and that's where I've always been focused, like things like our D-Store project which is cloud storage, which again, pretty boring, right? Everybody needs it, everybody uses it. We can decentralize it and make it a better and more inclusive and participatory for everybody. And that's finally happening, right? We're coming out of where people are using it. We're getting really big people will be surprised who the big real world companies using it, in addition to all the decentralized and individuals and things like that. That's we, Teland is a project in Peru, right, that is using NFTs to actually, instead of just pictures, which are nice, it's using them to secure land and funding for community and also export based agriculture that's going to lift the standard of living, contribute to food insecurity, which I think is you and I have talked about. It's a very big problem, and only made worse not only by global warming but by the the illegal annexation and invasion of Ukraine, and that pointless and tragic war also is going to have a big impact on food security around the world. Where the poorest people will pay first, right? Or you will hurt the most, right? So we're already seeing that in terms of lost fertilizer inputs, grain crops, and things like that, world prices. So that's a real world situation that you have to solve, right? So when people are when we see things that are actually solving stuff, like how do we get more food to people who don't have food, then you start going, okay, finally people are going to understand that yes, there are projects that don't do much, but there are also projects that really do a lot, and that's going to be a paradigm shift in how people view blockchain at all. Now, within that context, yes, there's things like metaverse, there's things like there's DeFi, still NFTs, but like more useful ones like that, like I was talking about. Those are all going to be big. I think governance is going to be huge, because because every organization in the world needs some form of governance, and there's no good ones. And I think there's nothing that's easy and transparent and cheap, and you can do from your home, and all the things that people expect of interactions in 2022 and going forward, require low energy, all these things. Those don't exist, but we have that, and we're just expanding that. So those types of real world uses will be big, and I think governance is one of them. That's where I think, as opposed to any kind of single, like this is the hot trend, that's the hot trend. I think the movement is towards stuff that does real things, that brings in real money from the traditional economy, and makes those things streamlined. And a lot of those things aren't going to be immediately visible, because big companies, big banks are going to be streamlining and making more transparent their loan process and whatnot. And people are mainly going to see the effects of that instead of they're not going to necessarily be coin offerings, right? So those are the things that are really going to blast forward. I think that it's an amazing time. I think there's a reason why you're seeing institutions coming in. I think there's a reason why you're seeing blockchain funds and investments and companies working in the tech that aren't necessarily doing any kind of token economy at this point. That's where I think the big growth is. And all the other things are sort of subservient for that. So metaverse is going to be fun, and gaming is going to be great, but unless they are able to flip the switch and bring in traditional gamers, which is like a hundreds of billions of dollar industry a year, or any of those things, unless they're able to bring those in and not be just niche, they will not thrive, because the ones that do that will thrive so much. So that's the big separator I see coming up, is look for things that actually have a real revenue model, solve a real problem, are no longer gee whiz, but are maybe a tiny bit boring, because they're actually engaging with the real world in some aspect, which means that it's a million times bigger opportunity and addressable market than we currently have. So that's what I think is going to be the surprise growth area of crypto.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Douglas, for this interesting conversation, and hope to see you again in some time in the future.
Thank you, Andrei. It's really great to be here, and I will definitely come back, because there's lots more to discuss.
Okay, thanks.
Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
Keep the fight up.